all the election punditry and spin gets to you, and you really want to see what's going on in the election and valuable insights in the direction of the economy. Welcome to This Will Happen, where we spot the trends, people, and events too often overlooked by the corporate media. Today's guests are at the heart of the biggest stories of 2020, the election and the economy. Our first guest is Mr. Owens Burgess, the Republican nominee for Utah's 4th Congressional District. Utah? How could a state that hasn't gone Democrat since 1964 be at the heart of the election in 2020? More to the point, in Salt Lake City, one of the whitest cities in America, how could a black Republican candidate for Congress be at the center of the 2020 storm? The first part of the answer lay in Mr. Owens' marvelous story. After graduating from high school in Tallahassee, Florida, Mr. Owens attended the University of Miami. Selected by the New York Jets in the first round of the 1973 NFL Draft, he unfortunately ran a kickoff back for 82 yards against my Denver Broncos in his rookie season. Moving on to the Raiders, Mr. Owens finally won a Super Bowl in 1981. He has become an author and CEO of a healthcare corporation. Now, you'd think that with a bio like this, Mr. Owens would be a shoo-in in a district that is 13 points more Republican than the average congressional district. But politically, Utah and Salt Lake City in particular are more complex in 2020. This is the most Republican district in the country currently represented by a Democrat. Now, here's the rub. In 2020, the district is entirely suburban. And this district doesn't seem to like Mr. Trump very much. Mr. Trump won the district by only 7 points in 2016, while winning Utah as a whole by much larger. In fact, President Trump won Utah by the lowest percentage of any state he actually carried in 2016. These are the type of voters that Mr. Trump must win back, found in the swing states across the country that Mr. Trump needs to win. So there you have it. This congressional race is the 2020 election in miniature. Now I'd like to introduce the man at the center of the storm. First round NFL draft pick, Super Bowl champion, author, and congressional candidate in Utah. Welcome, Mr. Owens, to This Will Happen. Owen, we're looking forward to seeing the next 100 days and how that plays out in Utah. And that is the tension in American suburbia between people who may not like Trump personally, may not like his style, may not like the bombast. But on the other hand, they like the results. In this context, in the 2020 reality, which is vastly different from the 2019 reality, are they going to be able to make that jump and contrast that with any anxiety they may be experiencing about the Democrats' leftist agenda?
My message very simply is this. We're seeing divisiveness, we're seeing destruction, tearing down monuments. We're seeing a country now that I've never seen, well, I haven't seen in such a long time in terms of total breakdown in terms of the race relationships, and it's being done on purpose. So because President Trump has stood for law and order, he stands for safety, security. He's proven over the last 3 years what he really stands for in terms of policies. The policies put together, John, is very important to understand, and most people don't realize it because if you turn on different stations, they won't talk about it. The lowest unemployment in the history of our country for Blacks, Hispanics, Asians, women, veterans, teens. We have a 400% increase in Black ownership, Black business ownership, which is remarkable because that is the entree to the middle class. We can talk about throwing names at each other, which the left loves to do. The Democratic Party has done a really good job of really separating us through race or gender or age or income. What we're doing now and the policies President Trump's put together and ones that I've been putting together, we do believe in the American dream.
Well, I mean, that's the Democrats' playbook. I mean, to go back into football mode here for a second. They have their base voters, of which Black Americans are a critically important part. They've taken Black voters for granted. You're seeing evidence all over the country of a lot of Black Americans just getting tired of this, right? And so it seems like the Democrat playbook is when they feel like Republicans are playing on their turf and competing for their base voters, they react very strongly and start screaming, racism, which they do pretty much every 4 years, because they've got to keep their base voters 3 things: scared, dependent, and angry.
John, you hit it on the head. At the end of the day, the playbook is they use misery as a political strategy. And here's what's happening: is you have Black Americans across this country who love freedom, who want opportunity, who are finally getting tired of all the promises. 93% of us back, 10 years ago, were voting Democrats hard because of how well they've put in place this branding of themselves. That's gone. That's different. We now have people walking away in droves. And that's why the Democratic Party is getting so frantic about, first of all, bringing illegals into our country so they can now become dependent and replace us. And they're also pushing out the narrative of racism every place you can think of. Anybody who does not believe in what they say are all of a sudden racist. And the sad thing about that is we have so many good people, so many good Americans, white Americans, who the last thing want to be done, the last thing they want to happen to them after working hard to get a reputation, showing how really good hearts they have, is to be called a racist, because you shut people up when you do that. Can I just say this one real quick, John, because I think it's important that our country recognize the context I'm coming from. I grew up in a community, deep South Tallahassee, Florida, days of KKK, Jim Crow, segregation, which 40s, 50s, and 60s, the Black community led our country in the growth of the middle class, led our country, men matriculated from college because education was everything, led our country in terms of men committed to marriage because our Christian faith was everything, and led our country in terms of the percentage of entrepreneurs. We had 40% of Black Americans, because we were in a segregated community, that led to 50 to 60% of Black Americans across this country, doesn't matter what state, part of the middle class. That is where we were, and now we're in a totally different place. And the sad thing is, because of the leftist desire not to educate us, many people think that's kind of shocking, that the Black Americans did not go from slavery to the 1960s, in which white people allowed us to go out and vote. We were kicking butt. My parents' generation did everything they could, just like every other culture, to embrace the American way. They educated themselves, they went out and had the faith, and they were industrious, and they believed the family was everything. We get back to that, we pull ourselves together, and we can beat the left, the Democratic Party, to destroy our American culture.
How real is something like the walkaway of Black Americans that have just had it with the Democrat Party? Some of them looking at, some independent action. It isn't necessarily a migration towards the Republican Party. It's just kind of, it's a recognition that the Democrat Party has failed them in a wholesale fashion.
It's not just Black Americans, by the way. It's Hispanics, it's gays, it's every across the board. People were Democrats for a long time that are literally posting that they're walking away. That's what's scaring the left, is that they have always been into the identity politics. They have been the ones that's really been the racist party by looking at us from outside in versus inside out. They look at us strictly as an identity versus who we are, the culture or the personality or the character. I see what's happening now throughout our country is more panic mode than anything else. This has nothing to do with George Floyd, by the way. This all has to do with the fact that the left cannot communicate, articulate, or have a conversation, so they go out and try to beat people up if they can't get their way. That's what happens, by the way, John. When you take God out of the picture, you get a godless ideology that's all about bullying and demeaning and pushing people to do things they don't want to do. If you understand what happened to my community, and you see what's happening across the country, this is what this is their vision for the rest of our country. We have in the state of California, 75% of the Black boys state of California's 2017 study cannot pass standard reading and writing tests. You have 13 schools in Baltimore in which there's zero proficiency.
Not one.
So if you see what's happening, we have the Democrats who prop up a policy in which their system is all about the adults. We have people out there who care less about individuals, about others, about kids. They use, abuse, and discard.
What can President Trump do to improve his standing and grow his support in districts like yours?
Again, all the president can do is lead. He can stand for our country, he can stand for policies that work, and then he can get the message out the best he can. So what we can do, all we have to do is stand up for what's going on right. Be articulate enough to explain to we the people that we are moving forward, that if we have a president who's really fighting for us, get the message that the Republican Party is getting results. We're not just talking game. The Democratic Party has nothing to do with anything about we the people, but just destroying our country so they get power back. If we can make that case and make it in a way that we can articulate it in a way that people can hear it and understand it and see the results, I just think instinctively within our DNA, we always do the right things at the right time for the right reason. And I really believe we're going to pull our country forward by voting for hopefulness versus hopelessness.
Two really, really fascinating books, especially when you consider your story. the title of this book is so funny, I just choke on it. But Liberalism, How to Turn Good Men into Whiners, Weenies, and Wimps. Did I get that right in the right order? Whiners, Weenies, and Wimps? The other one is Why I Stand, From Freedom to the Killing Fields of Socialism. That's what the Constitution is all about, is protecting us from the baser parts of human nature. Because where it ends up is the killing fields. Over 100 million people paid with their lives for this sad and failed experiment.
No, you nailed it. And that last statement was spot on. We have over 100 million men, women, and children being slaughtered, being killed, being starved to death by tyranny. And what we have to understand is that the evil is always coming at us. It was Karl Marx, the founder of socialism and Marxism, that said the first battleground is rewriting of history. So what the left does, what these people do is they steal. They steal our wealth, they steal our hopes, and they steal our history. But we the people do best. If we understood American history, which I do, I'm so proud to be an American because I know how far we've come. Also, I know that it's not been one race or the other. It's been all of us doing things together to bring us to where we are today. And we've grown up. We made mistakes because we are human. And it's interesting for those who now want to go back and destroy our history, destroy statues, are the same ones who have no idea what it is to know anything about building. And they're just as imperfect as anyone else can be, but they're looking back and judging other people as if they are God. Yeah, let me just say this, John. Choice is an American way. It's not a black or white. It's an American dream. It's an American option. We believe in meritocracy. We believe in choices. We believe in freedom. We come together when timing is right because we love our country, we love our culture, and we're people of vision and people of hope. So just when, baby, we can get this thing done with. Let's get the House back, get the more backbone in the Senate, and give our president 4 more years, my friends. And I tell you, we're going to come together as a country that we've never seen in our lifetime. Just get ready for it.
Well, if a Broncos fan and a member of a Raiders Super Bowl team can come together, the rest of America certainly can. We look forward to seeing you taking your Super Bowl ring to Washington, and we certainly all behind you. You're the man of the hour in so many ways and at the heart of one of the real hinge points of this election. And we wish you all the best. Your website is burgessforutah.com, and that's number 4.
You got it, buddy. We'll see you later.
All right. There's so much spin and so many stats being thrown around that it's really hard to make sense of where the economy is headed. Now, cutting through all of this BS isn't that hard. As an economist myself, I can tell you there are 2 basic truths to the American economy and understanding where it's going. First, it's a matter of psychology and people's expectations. And they believe in the future, they're more likely to spend what they have. The second truth is that 2/3 of the American economy is consumer driven. So when people believe in the future, they're going to spend, and when they spend, they're more likely to believe in the future. This type of understanding tends to be far more accurate than all of the spin and complicated graphs. Look at what people are buying. So to help us understand that is the very talented Ms. Sykes. Ms. Sykes is a leading retail and sales strategist that helps companies tap into the minds of consumers. As an expert on consumer behavior, she analyzes not only what consumers want now, but what they will purchase in the future. Welcome, Erin, to This Will Happen. You're at the very forefront of a field which gives us real insight into consumer psychology and consumer spending. And understand these 2 things helps us really understand where the economy is going.
Absolutely. And mental health factors. People want to indulge in themselves. And if you look into what people are buying, it is things that make them feel better. It's a lot of books. Audio books or self-help types of purchases, a lot of wellness purchases, at-home spa opportunities, makeup, or with the advent of Zoom meetings, people are really actually stepping up their makeup game. So we can get into really niche areas where people are spending, but it's areas where they can feel better about themselves, get a little taste of luxury through that lipstick effect. So those wellness and beauty items carry a very high emotional value right now to consumers. So Auto sales have also really been through the roof, and that is because of the migrations out of big cities. People are purchasing their first cars or their first cars in a long time. There is a huge demand for used cars. You almost can't get some used cars, some variants, and people will continue with the purchases to improve their homes. But I do expect clothing to really be soft.
Are people becoming price sensitive, or are they still willing, in whatever category, to splurge to make that big purchase? Circumstances change somewhat. People are still really willing to spend, and they're still desirous of spending on what they did before.
Yeah, and there's so much money moving through the economy right now with not all the SBA loans were collected, and but people are getting back to work. I mean, unemployment is it's not normal, but it's getting back to normal. I think that people really want to get back into store. I think that everybody's antsy. People are itching to get out and do things. There has been hesitation, and there will continue to be hesitation, but we saw a huge demand for restaurants when they started to open, and tables that are socially distanced, etc. So I do see pent-up demand there. It's just that the timing is still kind of shady.
Consumer spending patterns have certainly seen so many dramatic shifts over the last 4 or 5 months. It's going to be interesting to see as we head into the fall and winter what new patterns, if any, emerge.
Yeah, so it's been a really interesting few months, and there's been some huge winners and obviously huge losers. And a lot of the conversation has been just, are they spending? Because we are seeing a lot of activity in terms of spend, but it's where are they spending and how are they spending? So pickup delivery services have been huge, really influential throughout the pandemic, with actually the pickup options being far and above more interesting to people than getting traditional delivery service, mostly because people are scared of like the porch piracy and not even receiving their goods before somebody swipes it off their front deck. That said, which brands have they been buying from? Obviously, Amazon has been huge, and Walmart and Target. Those really true omnichannel retailers who have used every technology in terms of making sure that their delivery and their pickup order processing and their in-store versus their online accounting and inventory management is really accurate. So the big guys have been big winners.
Are you starting to see any changes in what people are buying, how much they're spending per purchase in June and July, and how that may or may not differ from early on in the pandemic when everyone was truly locked down?
Well, if we look to early pandemic, where the dollars per transaction was massive. Now, those transactions were almost all home goods and grocery items, but people were basically, going to their grocery stores or online and having delivery, and they were spending 3 times what they would traditionally spend per visit to the store. So that said, now things are normalizing a little bit more, and it is, I think, going to still be category specific in terms of where they're spending their money, because a lot of people are making those home improvements and first auto purchases.
Trying to get a sense of where people's buying habits are going.
Yeah, well, they're following basically 2 directions, and it's making the disparity between the haves and the have-nots even wider, because people that lost their jobs during the pandemic, they're looking to unemployment. Maybe they're not even getting the unemployment after weeks or months after having applied. So they really are still focusing on groceries and essentials. And then if you look at more affluent people who are invested in the stock market, things actually are really good for those folks right now. So it's you'll see them looking to not just subscribe to an online fitness streaming platform for $20 a month, but they've decided to bring the gym to their homes. And if that means outfitting an entire gym, same thing with the purchases of second homes. The migration out of big cities has been massive. So people not only purchasing second homes in the suburbs, but also refurnishing the homes they already live in because they want to have an enjoyable space around them if we're all going to be home for a while longer. So if you look to retailers like Home Depot and Wayfair, they've really seen a big boost as of late as well. And then, as you mentioned, RVs. It is the summer of the road trip, since especially airlines are hurting. But RV sales are through the roof, and national park services, and also the REIs of the world. People buying camping goods. I don't know how great of an investment tents are if it's going to be one season only, but people just have to have them right now. And actually, shirt sales are way above pant sales right now, because if everybody, is on the Zoom meetings.
Absolutely. I'm wearing a clean suit, but I'm not wearing pants at present. So pant sales are down. We all certainly look forward to seeing things go back to normal, and certainly every business wants to see people comfortable and willing to go out and spend once again and to enjoy the things that they did. Erin, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on This Will Happen. We really appreciate your time and your insight, and you've certainly given us a lot to think about that we didn't get and don't get from other networks and other media outlets.
Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure, Erin, and hopefully we'll see you back here soon.
Hope so.
There you have it. A fascinating congressional race that is a proxy for the whole 2020 election. And you really want to see what's going on in the election? Check in with Burgess Owens' race in Utah. As that race goes, so goes the national election. And so it is with the speculation, commentary, and econo-speak in the corporate media. People's buying behavior will tell you where the economy is going. Great stuff. Thanks for joining us on This Will Happen. I'm John Jordan. And remember, freedom, prosperity, and respect, they're for everyone.